Everybody, welcome to Guitar 5. This is the 5th episode in a series of episodes about the beginner guitar. And we've got Nick here, who's been leading this charge forward. These are free lessons that you'll find on the practice portal, and I hope in other places too, but also on Practice Pad. So if you're watching that, congratulations. And today's topic, we've got a couple of things to cover. I'm going to put Nick here on the screen. And yeah, so we're going to talk about some power chords. We got this Smells Like Teen Spirit thing. We're going to discuss that. Exploring the neck is another thing that you'll probably cover. And how are you doing today, Nick?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
Great. So, last week we talked a bit about the blues. Mm-hmm. And I think, if I have it here, it's something like that. We talked about that. And talk to me a little bit about what we're going to go through, go
Yeah,
over.
sure. So at the end of last week's lesson, we were sort of putting the blues style in context and talking about like how much it's like influenced just about like everything that you hear, that you listen to. So we're going to make good on that a little bit today. We're going to talk about a style of music that is definitely more recent and is really, really deeply influenced by the blues, called grunge. It's pretty 90s.
Okay.
And it's yeah.
I'm trying to bring that graphic up on the screen. Hang on a second here.
Well, anyway, while you do this, so yeah, grunge is it's kind of rock music. It's mostly from the 90s. The probably like most famous and maybe like pioneering band that kind of gave it its name was called Nirvana. Probably heard of them. And yeah, this music uses a lot of power chords. So most of what we're going to do today is go over like how to play those and just sort of like how they operate on the guitar. Yep, you got it right there. That's what that looks like. So you can play them actually. A lot of the time you'll see them played with 3 fingers. Just to start out, today we're going to play them with only 2 fingers. This is sort of like a small version of it. Oh, it has the same effect. This is the full version. And this is what we're going to be playing. So what you're missing is this note, which is the octave from this. It gives it like a little bit more body, a bit of like a warmer sound. But this will work perfectly fine for what we're doing today. So yeah, the nice thing about these chords is that they, no matter where you play them on the neck, and no matter what like chord you're playing, whether you're playing an A power chord or a B power chord or a G power chord, it's always going to look exactly the same. You can just slide them around. If you ask me, I think that's a big part of the reason why this kind of music was so into them. I mean, one, they have this really like thick and like stable sound, but it's really easy to sort of play riffs with them that like move really fast, Like you can do a lot with them pretty fast. So things like punk, things like heavier kind of music, grunge, we use them a lot. And I teach them, I kind of think about them as like a bridge between our open position chords that we've been talking about so far. Like a bridge between that and then how to like start exploring the neck and getting a little bit more real estate on like what we can do here. Because in our open position, which is where most people start on guitar, you're really stuck on like 3 or 4 frets tops. So you need something not too complicated that you can really sink your teeth into quickly that will actually get you up and moving around all this real estate up here. And power chords are great for that because again, you can just slide them around. If you want to play an F sharp power chord, there you go. It looks exactly the same as a G power chord. So yeah, a lot of versatility there. And the ones that this particular song uses are F, B flat, A flat, and D flat. Again, this is Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. And it's just your first finger and your third finger, and it looks all the same. Before I get into exactly where we're playing these, let's talk a little bit about how we're playing them. Pretty simple, again, as I said before. We are using our first finger. I'm just going to show you where the first chord of the song is. So let's put our first finger on the first fret of the low string, the low E. And then with our third finger, or if you've got kind of smaller hands, you can even use your pinky. If this reach is giving you trouble, you can start out with this. I would recommend, if you can, though, doing your third finger. Your third finger goes on the third fret of the A string. So feel free to play that note with me. Make sure you've got the right sound. And here's your low note. So I would spend some time just making sure that you have these sounding properly. And just for fun, before we even start playing the song, you can even take a second and just slide it wherever you want. One thing that might happen if you slide up is that your fingers might not slide at the same rate. So you always want to make sure that you have one fret of space in between them. So you should always be skipping over a fret and a string. So yeah, if you get a nasty sound like this, that's what's happening, is basically your first finger slid up a little further than your third finger did. So now you have them on, I guess, adjacent frets instead of this sort of box shape that we have. But as long as you're keeping that in mind, and you feel free to just really keep a close watch on your left hand, or your neck hand if you're a righty. So if you're a lefty, it'll be your right hand. And just explore, take a second to explore the neck a little bit and just see what you can find up here. You can also take a second to switch over strings and literally just pick your hand up very gently and just place the exact same shape, on the A and the D strings instead of the E and the A strings. So now on our first fret, we have this. One thing you might want to try is switching between first fret starting on the low string and first fret starting on the A string. I would even just go back to the first one. If you've got your guitar near you and you're watching this video, I would highly recommend picking it up and giving this a try. And as we always say, you want to make sure that your wrist is nice and relaxed and you're playing as much on the tips of your fingers as you can. You don't have to worry quite as much about not bumping into the other strings here, because you just don't. This is a pretty simple shape and it's pretty open, so you don't actually have that much close fingering stuff to worry about. And the next thing I want you to try, if you're playing this, is doing the exact same thing but up on the fourth fret instead of the first fret. So now we have. So see if you can go between these two chords 5 times in a row. I'm at 2. Here's 3. Here's 4. And again, like we've said before, I'm giving plenty of time in between each strum so I can really give myself a chance to make sure I've got the right thing. Because I was just talking about this with another student before this live stream about how tricky it is when you actually start practicing something wrong. And muscle memory works in a very interesting way, where if you're making a small mistake, but you're practicing it, you'll actually be practicing that mistake. So then before you can learn how to play it right, you almost have to unlearn the incorrect thing that you were doing. So that's why it's so important to always start out by practicing super, super slowly, so you can make sure that you're doing it like as accurately as you can, even if it sounds like absurdly slow. But just remember, like, everybody starts somewhere, and usually when you're practicing, you're by yourself, so you can sound however you want. Nobody cares. So even if you're going at this speed, quarter note equals 3 beats per minute. You can totally take all that time and just make sure you're like nailing those shapes. And then just start to speed up as slowly as you need. And that way, by the time you're speeding up, the actual movement that your hand is making is just second nature. You get the idea. So, incidentally, these 4 chords that we were just showing are actually the 4 chords of the song. As I said before, these are F, A flat, I'm sorry, B flat, F, B flat, this one's A flat, and then D flat. It's not totally necessary for you to remember those and be like learning the entire neck just yet. Just a quick word on that though. The way I think of the guitar is almost like 6 pianos. I don't know if you've played any piano before, you know that, or even if you've seen a piano, it's just keys and it goes from low to high. So, if you just hit one key and just roll your finger across the entire neck, you're going to get a sound somewhat like this. Can do that a little louder if I pluck the string. Where you're actually just hitting every single note in a row. If you strum the guitar down like this, you're not going to be getting that, because each of these strings is basically its own tiny little keyboard that starts on E, A, D, G, B, and then again on E. So as we're going, I think of this as vertically on the guitar, and I think of this as horizontally. As we're going vertically, we're getting all that. What we call chromatic movements. So when we're thinking power chords, that's how we actually learn which notes are which. Like if this is F, you're going to count up F, F sharp, G, A flat. And that's how you find this note. Again, we'll get into that in much more detail later, but if you're curious as to why I'm calling this F, D flat, A flat, and D flat, that's sort of the beginnings of how you figure that stuff out. Anyway, so let's try playing all 4 chords of this song in a row. I'm going to do 2 beats each on each chord, but I'm going to go really slowly. And again, if you've got your guitar, this is a great time to try playing along with me. So here we go. 4 chords in a row. 1, 2, all power chords. 3, 4. 2, B flat. 'Tapping my guitar to help you keep time. You don't have to do the taps yourself. You can if you want, though. So just to call it the frets again, we have first fret on the low string, then we have over 1 string, then up to the 4th fret, back on the low string, and then over. low string, over to the A, back on the low string, and that's probably enough of that. I'm not entirely sure why I put my pick down. I think I just did that absent-mindedly. You should definitely be doing this with a pick, because this song, it's gritty. You really want to dig in on each of these chords. And yeah, so those are the 4 chords: F, B flat, A flat, and D flat. And you should spend a lot of time just practicing them at that slow speed, just going 1 strum per chord. But if you listen to the song, you'll notice that there is this very iconic strumming pattern that on each chord sounds like, that is super important. And I would consider that sort of like the next layer to add to the song, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably like you said, the most iconic part of it. So can you show us how to do that?
Yeah, of course. So the strumming pattern for each chord that you're going to want is, it's very simple, even though it's awesome. Sometimes awesome things are simple. Most of the time they are. It's just pretty aggressively, it's going down, up, down. But before we just dive in, a couple of things. When you're strumming like this, we talked a little bit about how when you're holding the pick, most of the movement comes from your wrist as opposed to your arm. I see a lot of beginners when they're playing like something like the E pentatonic scale that we went over last week. They'll play it like, and it's hard to get a lot of like accuracy if you're doing that. I mean, if you think about if you have a pen and you try to write your name holding it at the back of the pen, that's going to be really, really hard as opposed to holding it closer and you have so much more control. It's the same kind of thing where if you're making your movement from all the way back here, you can't really, it's just sort of ridiculous. But if you're making your movement from up here for all these like small motions, you can get a lot more detail. And the same thing kind of goes for strumming, where you want to have this wrist motion as opposed to like big arm motions. In the case of these power chords, when you have this pretty like aggressive motion, and also like, let's be honest, like this kind of music is sort of theatrical. Like you want to look like you're really like playing it. You don't need to be so precious about like only having this tiny little wrist motion. Your arm's going to get involved a little bit. What you do want to think about is this like wrist flick almost, is being able to get this sort of like whiplash. So if you've ever cracked a whip, or even if you've like thrown a Frisbee or something, just this idea of like whipping out your hand so that like the force is coming at the end of your hand. That's how you want to be thinking about this. So it's not, it's, so especially that last one is sort of this like, throwing away, like bop motion. I tell a lot of students to think of it as if they're like playing drums on the guitar. Like you really want this very loud, percussive, energetic hit into the strings. So yeah, that's just a word about like how to strum for this. In terms of the actual strumming itself, we said down, up, down, and the rhythm is ba, ba, ba. So you could say long, short, short. So yeah, we have. Oh, and then there's on all the higher chords on the A string, you just have down, down. So long, short, 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 short. And I would just do that a couple times on your own. Just. And before the last two shorts, I find it really useful to actually take a breath in. I think a lot of the time, we talked about this last week a bit with like the idea of phrasing and like trying to play the guitar like you're singing almost, and like relating it back to your breath, this sort of like organic human thing. It's the same thing when you're strumming. It also like really helps you keep time and keep rhythm. So there's this like, there's a rest, there's a little bit of space. You don't want to rush it and just play like, that's a totally different thing. So you can actually add this little placeholder of taking a breath, taking an inhale. I find that to be like a really useful way of like keeping my place, and also you inhale on that rest, and then those two downstrokes you're exhaling, and you actually like you'll come forward a little bit. You'll like really like it'll make your body get involved with the chord that you're doing instead of just this little bit of your body. You can like use your whole body to play this song, and it'll sound there. So if we want to do it slow to kind of warm up to it, we can start 1, 2, 3, 4. We got down, 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 down. We want to be remembering our wrist. I changed the pattern there. Oh. Go one more time. So yeah, that is how I would put the strumming pattern together. So we have our wrist motion. We have down, up, down, down, down. That's just the actual what we call the strumming pattern. And then we have breathing. We have remembering to like keep our place in the time and the rhythm with this little like extra inhale, or not extra, but just like being maybe a little bit extra aware of that inhale and like putting it in the space so that you have something to do in that silence. You fill the time, and then you exhale into the next chord so that you really like can put some feeling into it. So yeah, that is how I would put together the song.
Very cool. And some background note. So on September 10th, 1991, the song was released. So that's 30 years ago. It makes me feel crazy old.
Wow.
And
yikes.
Yeah. So I mean that's that. And then also there's a band called the Pixies. Kurt was trying. He basically wanted to write the ultimate pop song, but he wanted to do it in the style of the Pixies. There's a song called "Tame" by the Pixies that has this. It's not like a tame song, but it's got this form where it's kind of not mellow, but like sort of mellow, and then all of a sudden it goes into this raging part, and then back to that, and it follows the form of that. And if you read the programming, he wanted to write a Pixie song, basically. If you like the Pixies.
That much I knew, but I didn't realize that he was actually drawing from the form like that. That's awesome.
It's similar, yeah. If you listen to it, you'd be like, okay. But yeah, so obviously it's a tragic story after that. But it's a really great tune to practice your power chords, practice a pretty intense rhythm. Yeah. And do it in time with with
it's great because all those elements in this song are super important to the song, because it's like a simple song. It's not operating with much. It's like, I mean, that riff just continues the entire song. So to like sell that, to make it work, if your whole song is going to just be this one sound, like you got to be playing that sound right. But I like it for teaching because none of the elements themselves are that complicated, but they're all super weighty within the song. So it's like you can actually put together these relatively simple ingredients, and if you're nailing it, then you're really nailing it because it's a great song. Right. You can like see results very quickly with it.
Loud, quiet, loud blueprint. That's what they called it. So, and then it's set the table for just countless songs that follow that blueprint, which takes from like metal, like a metal background, into pop.
Definitely.
So it's very interesting and a really great way to, really great way to put it out there. Somebody's commenting, haha, I was 17 when it was released, and I think I was too. We might be the same age. How old was I? I think I was 16 when it was released. How old am I? Who am I? Okay. So any parting comments about the... I grabbed one great thing you said. I really loved it, which is try not to practice your mistakes. Poof, that's perfect.
I have learned that the hard way many a time. where, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're just looking for some kernel, that would be a good one to take, of just being very conscious about how you practice. And in that vein, if you feel yourself like getting frustrated and you're like getting into a rut and you're like, oh my God, I've made this mistake like 20 times in a row, and you're just like getting madder and madder, put the guitar down. Just take a walk. Because at that point you're just practicing your mistakes, and the more frustrated you are, the more you're gonna make the mistake again, and you're just gonna start making other mistakes, because when you're frustrated, you're like playing sloppily. Put the guitar down. Have some water, have some tea, have some coffee, do whatever you gotta do, take a walk, call a friend, watch some TV, come back to it fresh, and yeah, it's just like, I think there's this idea, if you're trying to learn something hard, of just like more time equals better, of just like, I will put in 7 hours into this thing, and if I just like bang my head against the wall for long enough, eventually I'll get it. And it is more of like a quality over quantity kind of thing. Like if you're practicing 20 minutes a day, but like really carefully and really precisely, that's better than practicing badly for 6 hours, I would say.
Yeah, not many people are going to practice for 6 hours, but if you do, please breathe, like Nick.
But if you do practice for 6 hours and you practice well for 6 hours, and you're not just banging your head against the wall, yeah, please call me. I would love to book you on a record.
Yeah, because
you'll be stealing my gigs.
I know, seriously. Yeah, you read all these greats that practice and practice and practice. But look, it's at this stage, it's more about finding the direction, understanding why you're doing some of these things, and just continuing forward. So this is a really great breakdown of
listening. Listen to the song. Listen to Nirvana right after you finish this live stream.
Yeah, and I think we've said this a couple times. In college, they make everybody take these courses about the history of music. My daughter was just talking about this the other day. And in those courses, they make you listen to the music, but they really don't explain, in my opinion, don't really give you like the passion behind this. And it turns out being like a history class. So it's stuff like this. If you're new to it, it's so cool to just take a second, listen to the tune, find out a little bit about them. It's so accessible. All you gotta do is type "Smells Like Teen Spirit" online
and listen to the song. And also, like, if you're curious about, like some of what Dan was talking about with, like I didn't like, I knew that Kurt Cobain was super influenced by the Pixies. I didn't realize that he was like that consciously lifting that quiet, loud, quiet form. Another great thing on YouTube is that like there are interviews with all of these people.
Yeah,
like all of that stuff's been uploaded. So I mean, if you're curious. Like, I'll say this, if it feels dry to like try and get through a music history class or like read a textbook, you can go watch Kurt Cobain talk about what he was thinking for free anytime you want. Like that's all there. And like Kurt Cobain was an interesting, captivating guy. Like watching him talk is fun. He was weird and cool. So yeah, I mean, definitely listen to the song, but if you want to even go a layer deeper, you can, for most artists in the last 50 years, you can probably hear them say something about why they were making what they were making. And I like that a lot. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's the most unbelievable things you can find out online. And another person's asking here, is your guitar electric? If so, is it plugged in?
Oh, it is not currently plugged in. This is what we call a hollow body or an archtop, both of which are very uncreative names for what this is. It's called an archtop because it literally, if I can angle this right, the front of it literally has like an arch to it. It's hollow body because it's hollow. These are what we call F holes. The body's actually pretty similar to like a violin with these kind of holes. I like this guitar a lot because it does have an outlet to plug in, and it's got what we call a pickup right here, so you can get an electric sound. But because of the F holes, it actually gets a pretty loud and lovely acoustic tone. And I'm very particular about what strings I use, and I have a special pick that we've talked about on this live stream before. So if you're careful about what like gear and materials, strings, picks, stuff you're using, I love the acoustic sound that this thing gets. Yeah. So to answer your question, it's both.
It's great. Acoustic electric. Okay, Nick, we're going to wrap up today, and thank you for this. This has been Guitar 5, And today we talked about a very famous song, Smells Like Teen Spirit, along with introducing power chords over here. So we'll end it there. Please join us next time for Guitar 6. We'll expand upon this. It's going to get a little bit more fun now because we're going to be able to expand upon what we've already learned. Right?
Definitely. Yeah, at this point, we've got some good foundational stuff, so we can start. We'll start revisiting some of the chords that we've already hit and think about like ways to use them in more complicated ways, and etc. So yeah, only gets more fun as you go on.
Absolutely, and don't forget at Real Brave, the Real Brave method is all about discovering the music you love, deconstruction, just kind of taking it apart, chunking it down, working on it together, development, and then the documentation during the week is you playing it. So let's get it down, let's record it, and let's move on. So we'll end it there. Thanks for your time today, and we'll see you next week. Take care, Nick.
Happy practicing. Thanks a lot.